Maybe they want to teach only advanced aging population, older people, and they need to use their creativity to adapt the exercises to fit that clientele, that older population. Shouldn't you be happy about that? Because the method is so adaptable. Isn't it more important, like if you think about your own family, like if your grandparents are out there doing some Pilates and they are living more functional, happy lives because they found their movement that makes them happy, how is that a problem? There's Pilates out there for people that have survived breast cancer. There are Pilates for people in bigger bodies. There's Pilates for people that have neurological conditions. Does it look like maybe the original exercises that Mr. Pilates created? Probably not. Is it still Pilates? Sure. Welcome. Stick around if you want to learn about the art and philosophy of beautiful movement mixed with evidence-based exercise science. We will be having tough and inspiring conversations with other coaches, experts, artists, and athletes. Our goal is to challenge myths, explore concepts, and engage in healthy debate as we dive deep with intrigue and curiosity. I'm your host, Hannah Deutscher. I've been teaching dance, Pilates, and yoga for over 2 decades. And what I've learned is that movement can be the joy that integrates us all together. When we can trust and express ourselves through our bodies, we are unlimited in our ability to change ourselves and our communities for the better. We, as movement teachers and coaches, have the power to help people experience this for themselves. Okay, everyone, let's dive in. Exchanging ideas and changing people's lives one session at a time. This is the Pilates Exchange. Welcome back to the Pilates Exchange, everyone. Glad that you're here. We're going to open this one up with yet another discussion about classical versus contemporary Pilates. And I'm just going to say at the get-go, this is a really boring conversation. So I'm going to kind of just get my opinion. Hopefully this is the last time we're going to have this. I'm going to go through my feelings about this whole thing and how we can change this conversation around into something that is far more interesting. I spend way too many episodes, I feel, talking about this discussion. And the reason why I do it is because there are a lot of teachers that are in our mentorship programs that are getting, let's just say what it is, bullied. They're getting bullied by all sorts of different types of Pilates police on both sides. There's people on both sides that believe that they have the right to say their opinion about someone else without being asked. So I have people in our programs that reach out to me privately or in Train the Trainers or whatnot. Also, several people just do private coaching with me, several teachers. And they're all going through, either reading through comments or they've been personally attacked somewhere on the internet from some troll, some Pilates police troll. And again, on both sides, that makes them question what they are doing. And it gets on my nerves, people. I really think that not only is this discussion kind of boring at this point, but the bullying that's happening, it's coming from people that are trying to make themselves feel better. I don't know why they feel insecure. We'd have to talk to each and every one of these why they feel that it is okay to slide into DMs and tell them what they're doing is wrong. Also on commentary on different posts, whether it be Facebook or Instagram, it doesn't even really matter in the big World Wide Web. Now, I do get that when you put yourself out there, you're putting yourself out for mass consumption, and people are allowed to have opinions. And that is absolutely no big deal. Like we invite opinions. Thoughtful discussion and debate is really important everywhere, because once we get into my way is the only way and the right way, and there's no other input that's coming in, that becomes a really dangerous and dogmatic place to be. That's not what we want. But I really think that you should just teach the Pilates method in the way that you learned it and adapt what you need for the student in front of you. The students don't care about classical versus contemporary. They don't. They care about feeling better in their own bodies. They feel they want to get stronger. They want to get healthy. They want to have a mind-body technique that makes them feel less stress in their life. All of the different reasons. Maybe they're looking for a lower impact version of working out. Who knows? Like, you have to get to know the student to figure out exactly what they're looking for. And in the end, there's no Pilates Olympics out there. Like, no one is grading the student on how well they execute a semicircle. Instead, like, we are taking this method and we're getting people to move, and therefore we are doing our jobs. So whether you've invested your money in this type of Pilates education or that type of Pilates education, as a teacher, your main job is to teach the person that's in front of you with the knowledge that you have. And I'm more concerned with how are you transmitting that information? That's where I feel is the really great stuff. Because in the end, whether you teach it with your pinky finger over here or over there, it really does not make a big difference, any difference. There's no difference at all on them. If the students are drawn to classical Pilates and they enjoy that traditional, authentic, whatever you want to call it, I don't care again, then that's great. Then they found what makes them happy. If it's more of a contemporary approach to Pilates and that student finds their happy place there in that studio, awesome. Then that's where they should be. They found what makes them happy in movement. Then we have done our jobs. There are no studies that I've found that compare these two different ways of thinking about Pilates with injury rates. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Send me an email, right? If you have a meta study about injury rates, because I hear that as a big thing. People get more injured in this type over this type. I don't think there's any information about that. People are more likely to get injured because they have a bad night's sleep. Maybe we should be focusing more on that. Like, did you sleep well last night? And then you decide what sorts of exercises you do based on their energy. Are they well hydrated? Did they get enough food on that day? How stressed? Like, those things have a higher prediction of injury rate than whether it's a traditional exercise or a little bit more contemporary exercise, by far. But what I find even more appalling is this need to police each other. Why? I'm so riled up about this, and the people that listen to this podcast are probably not the Pilates police, right? But those are the people that really need to dig deep on that thing. Why do you feel it's necessary to bully someone else on the internet? It's because you want to feel better about yourself. That's what you need to be unpacking. That sort of bullying it's unacceptable. You need to go and do your own sort of therapy to figure out why you would say mean, hurtful comments to other people. And the reason why I know that this happens is because it happens to me. I really don't care. I mean, they can slide into my DMs and say whatever they want, because I didn't ask for their opinion, so I'm not going to take their opinion, and it really doesn't matter to me. If I have the patience and the space, then I will engage in a conversation, but mostly it's not about having a conversation with these people. It's about them trying to feel better about whatever it is, wherever they are in their life, whatever they are teaching. And so they feel like it is their right to send a nasty message. I have a healthy enough ego and self-esteem where it really doesn't bother me. But there's a lot of people that maybe don't. I've been in this field long enough, decades. So I don't care what you think, but that's not always, if that's not all people. And what that does is that type of sneaky, snarky behavior, it can really erode someone's self-esteem and trust in what they know. And when we're looking at it as a larger issue like this, it's predominantly women in this field, predominantly women teachers, predominantly female-owned businesses. And we need to lift each other up. It's hard enough to find the resources to run successful teaching businesses, whether you're a freelance teacher or a studio owner, it makes no difference. It's hard enough to get the information that we need. I feel we need more clanning together so that we have a group of people that are lifting each other up, helping each other with information, with resources, with praise, with answering questions that no hint of scarcity, right? Like if I help someone on the other side of the world with a question about, I don't know, how to do some exercise or what my opinion is on how I can help a person do a roll up if they have a stiff back, how does that take away from me? It doesn't take away, right? It helping the entire community of teachers to teach better, to make more money from the work that we do. That is important. It's important that we can live from this profession. Let's go back to this idea of like what I see sometimes in the different Facebook groups is the poo-pooing on like, oh, they teach with music and it's only the young people that go in. Okay, good. My opinion is if that's not your crowd of people that you want to teach, great. Don't put music in your classes, right? But if someone is out there and they have a studio and they say, okay, I want this younger crowd and we're going to have whatever type of music playing the whole time. And you draw in a crowd of young people in there, all Instagrammers, maybe they're all influencers. Great. That's awesome. You know what that means? That means that there's going to be more people out there that are getting healthier bodies and healthier minds. Excellent. Let's do that. It doesn't matter if there's music on in the background because it doesn't affect you, the other person, right? Maybe, they want to teach only advanced aging population, older people. And they need to use their creativity to adapt the exercises to fit that clientele, that older population. Well, that's great. Shouldn't you be happy about that? Because the method is so adaptable. Isn't it more important? Like if you think about your own family, like if your grandparents are out there doing some Pilates and they are living more functional, happy lives and they're out and about because they found their movement that makes them happy, how is that a problem? That goes for any sort of, let's say I'm putting air quotes here, like special population crowd, There's Pilates out there for people that have survived breast cancer. There are Pilates for people in bigger bodies. There's Pilates for people that have neurological conditions. Does it look like maybe the original exercises that Mr. Pilates created? Probably not. Sometimes, not always. Is it still Pilates? Sure. Because who isn't? And like, there's a lawsuit all about this, right? Like that Pilates name, you could use it, right? In fact, anyone can use that, right? Anyone can call themselves a Pilates instructor. That's the thing that we're going to get into a little bit later. I want to go back into this idea of like, know what you like to teach, who you like to teach, the environment that you are creating, what sort of teaching methods help your clientele, help your students to go further. I want you to think about that. That's the important stuff. You're just teaching movement, right? And if someone comes to you and they don't fit your clientele that you feel comfortable teaching, or that personality-wise it doesn't work, send them someplace else that does. There shouldn't be any competition here, especially if we start opening up the conversation. In our studio, we have a list of every website and phone number from all the different people that we know in our area, up to a 45-minute drive away from us, different studios, so that if we find a person that comes to our studio and maybe originally, and we realize that they are not a good fit for us, then we will refer them out. We can recommend out based on what the client's goals are, the location, the price point, opening times, personality. Like, I would gladly help this potential student, potential client find something that makes them happy so that they can move better in a different studio than just sending them away or making them, you can't make anyone stay in your studio, but if it's not a right fit for you, then it won't work, right? It's not going to be good. So if I feel like maybe a traditional method fits them better, then there's a great studio that's down the street from us that I'm sure would love this client. And then I send them on. And the thing is that none of the other studios in my area know that this is what we do. Like there's no referral fees. Like it's not a competition. Like it doesn't matter. If another studio gets a client based on our recommendation, that's amazing for the studio. And it's also amazing for the student that they find maybe their happy place. And even better than that, it's amazing for the community that we are surrounded in when more people are working out, getting healthier, getting fitter, because it's not just about their bodies, but it's also about their minds, right? Healthy body, healthy mind working together. It has nothing to do with traditional versus contemporary. And when we're talking about traditional versus contemporary, I find it very odd that we pick and choose what aspects are the ones that we want to, and the Pilates police want to go down to. Like you can watch archival videos of him teaching. God, that looked brutal, right? Like I don't want his hands pressing me over and boomerang and slamming my face down towards my knees. Like that does not look nice. That doesn't look like a good teaching method. So are we going to look at his teaching methods and we adapt those, and say, okay, this is classical? Or are we looking at the exercises and say, hey, this is classical? But we do know that there's been an evolution over time. People that say there is no evolution they're lying to themselves, because you can look at some of these original teachers, like through the lineage, and you'll see, I've talked about this before, you'll see different variations of the same exercises. And it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters at all. So I find that interesting in itself. Like, what aspect, is the Pilates police going to hang on to? And you know what? The people that were closest to him, the very few that are still alive, are not the ones that are doing the bullying. It's the 2, 3, like my teacher was so-and-so and so-and-so. And, 3 people down the lineage, that's a ridiculous thing anyway, lineage of saying, oh, well, it has to be like this. Really? I don't think so. A bigger problem is that we don't have all of the access to the original photos and the videos that are out there, because there's a crazy lawsuit. So I'm not going to get into it right now. We'll have people on the podcast in the future talking about this once the lawsuit is settled. More important is to look at the heritage videos and pictures that are out there. I think that would be really interesting, seeing the historical nature of the things. But that's being gatekeeping, I don't know how we want to say, by a particular person, which is just also terrible. But again, we'll go into that a little bit in the future. When I started teaching, I felt underprepared and overwhelmed. I needed to learn how to plan my training so that it made sense, but I wasn't sure what was working and what wasn't. So many teacher training programs leave out the actual art and business of teaching. This is why we created Train the Trainers. Train the Trainers is designed to give you the tools you need to create a powerful learning environment for your students. Gain access to the vault of our collected knowledge, where you can learn everything we have to teach you, whether you are a freelance teacher or a studio owner. Get constructive feedback on your teaching with actionable tools you can apply immediately. We can't wait to be part of your teaching journey and to help you grow in your business. Welcome to Train the Trainers. In this traditional versus contemporary discussion, often we're hearing about, okay, well, this type of equipment is the best because it is the original. But I really don't think that's even the thing. I think it's fantastic that we have more types, more brands of equipment, of Pilates apparatus, Pilates equipment, because it's available for different bodies and different price points, right? Some of the carriages are a little bit wider. Some of them are a little bit longer. Sometimes the rails are a little bit longer. And that makes things more comfortable. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to suffer through the things. There's different loops there. There's different straps, maybe ropes, maybe leather. Sometimes the boxes and the foot bars are padded. That feels more comfortable. You don't have to have an uncomfortable piece of equipment to work on to do Pilates. That doesn't degrade the system, which is a word that I've heard before. Why can't we have comfortable Pilates equipment and do Pilates on that? And you know that each body is going to feel different just based on our own angles and levers. It'll feel different on different pieces of equipment, and that is good. That's why we want different manufacturers out there. That's a good thing, because then people can try it out at your studio and say, okay, I like the way this feels, or no, it doesn't feel right for me. And then they'll go to a different studio. I've trained on many, many different types of manufacturers of apparatus, and I have my preferences for my body. But in my studio, we have a few different manufacturers because I understand the value for my clients. I understand that different heights of the equipment will be better for them. Different widths might be better for different bodies. And that doesn't do anything to devalue the Pilates method. What it does is it enhances it. It gets more people working out, moving, feeling comfortable in their body. Another aspect that I've seen that people harp in on, like, how could you teach 12 people on reformers? Reformer Pilates isn't Pilates. Really? Like, it sounds like those Pilates police people are just kind of jealous. Like, that's really what it sounds like. If you don't want to teach 12 people on a reformer, don't do it. Don't apply for a job at a studio that does it. If you feel comfortable teaching one person at a time, do that. If you want to teach one person on every single piece of Pilates apparatus there is, you want a pedipole, and then you want the ladder barrel, and you want all that in your studio, and you teach that one person all over the place on every piece of equipment, good for you, do it. If you want to teach 12 people on reformers, and that's your business model, go ahead, do it. Because one thing doesn't take away from the other thing. I used to teach these huge classes, 50 plus people on, mat classes. And that was great at the time. I really, really enjoyed it. Now our studio is based on something else. It's smaller, and that works for us now. It's a different skill set to be able to teach one person on a reformer, or 12 people on a reformer, or a group of 8 people in a mat class, or a group of 50 people in a mat class. It's a different skill set of teaching. Maybe if you feel like you couldn't do that, maybe what the Pilates police that are out there, maybe you're just kind of a little jealous, or maybe you're a little insecure that you don't have yet those skills to do it. And then that's fine. That's the thing is, like, I just think that we need to go a level deeper and say, okay, this makes me uncomfortable because I don't feel like I would be able to teach that many people. That's truth then. Then that's something that I can respect and say, okay, you don't have yet those skills to be able to teach a large group of people. Then, okay, if that's something that you want to learn, we could teach you how to do that. But if it's clutching your pearls because it's a big mat class of more people than you would like to teach, and you're talking about, oh, it's too many people. Well, I think that's disingenuous about what the real issue for you is. Because I don't really think someone's going to get injured. No, I really don't think that you care that much about it. I just don't. I think it's a level deeper than that. And it's something that you feel inherently uneasy about how you would be able to manage that situation. I don't want to say this is all on the classical side of things, traditional side of things, It's vice versa and there shouldn't be black and white, like this versus that goes on this side or that side. It's not about that. There's the contemporary people that haven't had, a classical experience. You need to go out and do that and experience it in your own body. And it might have to be with a couple different teachers because you know how it is as well. The teacher makes the difference if you fall in love with the method. So you might have to try out a couple different teachers on both sides of this. You might have to try out if you don't like music in your class. Maybe it just wasn't the music that you like. Maybe it was something else. It's a little bit like, okay, so I'm going to use a car reference because I live in Germany with Christian and we have a lot of automakers here. So here's the car reference. You can drive your BMW, an Audi, or a Mercedes, and they're all going to get you to the same spot. You can have a preference for what type of maker you like. I personally like Audi. If I had an Audi, I would love to drive that all the time. But sometimes, if we rent a car and it's a BMW, great. You drive the car in hopes to get somewhere, right? Like you're traveling to, it's a functional thing. You get in the car to drive somewhere to end up at a location. And that's my understanding of what Pilates is, right? Like you're taking this method to arrive not back in the car. You're arriving at a healthier body, a healthier mindset, a healthier future. I think a more worthwhile discussion that we should be having is, because I've talked about before of like this Pilates and anyone can call themselves a Pilates teacher and all that, which is true. Anyone off the street can have no contact with the Pilates method and call themselves a Pilates teacher. I get that. There's also a really big range of different certification programs, right? I get that too. Isn't it a more interesting conversation to not be going at the product of this system, the people that are teaching, and have a wider discussion about, well, what do we want to do about this? And what's the correct way of going about it, right? Like there's different groups, I'm not going to name them, but different basically directories that you can say, okay, I'm a member of this group in this country. If it's PMA in the States or it's Deutsche Pilates Verband here in Germany, and there's Australian, and like there's a whole bunch of different places, right? And each one of them, do they communicate with each other about what is the standard for Pilates? What are the standards? Because there's none official that I know of. And then at that point, if all of those agencies would get together and say, okay, what are our standards of teaching? What are the exercises that must be there for it to be Pilates? And at what point of time, right? Like, how often are they going to be checking this? Like, how much science, because I think it should be science-based, how much science is going to be behind which exercises that they're choosing? Do we have enough experiments that have gone on to look at if this version is better than this version on the body? What about the breathing? Like we're taught, you have to breathe like this. It has to be an inhale. It has to be an exhale over here, or else it's not Pilates. Really? Like, is it that important? Does it have any impact on the end result? You can say it does, but is there proof for that? Now that's interesting. Shouldn't we get together and say, okay, certifying agency bodies, let's get some real science-backed information here, and then we teach from that. What about progressive overloading? You have to stay on 2 springs for this. Really? But if the person can press all the springs and they want to get stronger, then why are we stopping with 2 springs? And then we have like those bodies, these certifying agencies, because they're not like the ones that I named before, they're not certifying agencies. They are, you could pay to have your teacher training listed there, right? And they'll take a look at how many hours you say that you're going to teach, but are they going back and looking at the material? Are they coming by your studio and saying, yes, you're doing a good job creating more teachers? Like, where's the oversight? And then if we've decided, or if they've decided, or if we've all banded together and decided, okay, these are the exercises and stuff, who's going to create the manual, right? What book are we going to teach from? Because right now, I know that it takes hundreds and hundreds of hours for each studio that wants to certify people and get their teacher training registered and pay for, because of course, you have to pay for them to look at the information, right? It takes hundreds of hours plus hundreds of euros or dollars or whatever it is to get that done. And then why isn't that a standard information? Like, shouldn't they be providing the book that we teach from? Instead, they put the onus on the small studios to say, okay, create this teacher manual, and then you have to rewrite all the things that are there. And then perhaps we'll say, yes, that it's okay. So how often then, like if we were to band together and say, okay, which exercises are supposed to be there? What does the form look like? What are like, do we need, which muscles are working all the time? Is that helpful? Maybe, maybe not. Like it'd be interesting to have then that agency also be helping, like if you're paying into it, because that's the thing, you pay for these people and what do they give you back? Are they giving you the helpful business information, how to make your studio more successful? Are they updating you with the newest research that's out there? Are they updating you with different teaching techniques? That would be far more interesting if we need certification programs. Now, that is a whole nother thing, because certification programs, like, is it 500 hours? I think is what the going is, right? 500, and then you're fully certified in all the equipment. 500, is it 600? Is it 1,000? Like, people progress in different ways and different times. And I've had contact with teachers that have had hundreds, thousands of hours of constant different workshops that they're taking, and they're not a good teacher. But what they do is they have a lot of certifications. They have a lot of these little certificates saying that they've done something, but they have no way to put that information into practice. And this, like, is the knowing it in your body and being able to communicate these exercises to the person, to the student that's in front of you. I think that's interesting. That's where I think we could put more focus on how we're teaching. So again, I think the real discussion is how we want to go forward. How, as an industry, are we going to imagine the future of Pilates? Because right now we have a very big social media push thing, thankful to TikTok and Instagram and all of that younger crowd of people that are reviving this method. And so now is a great time to have the discussions about how can we take steps in a way that's going to create better business models, safer environments. Not that Pilates is unsafe, but like more effective environments. So people are getting to the goals that they have. That's exciting. That's the real stuff. And there's a lot of people out there that are having these discussions, but we're not all working together, right? So we have podcasts from me. There's other brilliant podcasts that go into more of the science base, more of the, there's a lot of discussions that are happening. But what we're not doing is we're not talking all together at this point. That's where I think we have to go. It's not just the podcasters. It's not also just the big Instagram accounts or the Facebook accounts that have to do it. It's all of the other teachers as well. We have to band together and say, okay, what is the real discussion about? It is certainly not, I hope that I've made my point. It's not about the classical versus contemporary. That is a boring conversation to be having. Instead, I really want to see what can we do together, all of us together, to propel this forward another 100 years, another 100 years of helping millions of people feel great in their bodies. That's what we want to be doing. I love to hear what you think. Slide into my DMs. Even if you're a bully, even if you don't like anything I've said, I'd love to hear thoughtful discussion, debate. I'm up for debate too. Like, if you are on the total opposite side of anything that I've said, send me a message. Maybe we could have a discussion either privately or on the podcast. We'll see. Have a wonderful rest of your week and happy teaching, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. A great cost-free way of supporting us and the podcast would be to give us a 5-star rating. You can also look down into the show notes and grab any one of the free resources for teachers. I hope to see you next week on the Pilates Exchange. Happy teaching, everyone.